Welcome to the Stewardship Leader Podcast, brought to you by the Christian Stewardship Network. CSN exists to teach and equip church leaders the biblical perspective on finances so they can speak with authority, confidence, and integrity. To learn more, visit us at christianstewardshipnetwork.com. Well, hey everybody, welcome to Stewardship Leader. I'm your host, Leo Sabo, and I'm so excited today to have my friend Rodney Ross from Life Church with us. Rodney has been a longtime leader in the stewardship and generosity ministry, and of course, Life Church, a very large church with a lot of influence, great tools, the Bible app, so many things that they've done for the kingdom. And I'm excited to have a conversation with him today. And we're going to be talking about a session that Rodney did at the 2025 annual forum. And the title is Leveraging Data and Artificial Intelligence to Better Disciple and Care for People. Rodney, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
Leo, thanks for having me. It's always so good to connect.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with how long you've been working at Life Church. Let's learn a little bit about you, your role, and what you do at Life Church.
Absolutely. So I've been attending Life Church for around 20 years, but came on staff a little over 13 years ago. And my original role was a giving experience director. And basically that role was to wake up every day thinking about the experience that people were having when they gave to Life Church. And it was really all things operational. So how did our technology work? What was the back end processing of giving and transactions? And then I was able to launch a generosity team after we did a lot of things with the giving operations, and then was able to lead a data team for a little while, which was great fun. And then today I get to focus strictly on generosity and stewardship.
Well, definitely a topic that we're all excited and want to learn more about. And I'm grateful for you. I know you, I've known you for quite a while now, and you really seem to love data. Was that always the case? What really led you to use data for such an important ministry?
Yeah, no, it definitely was not the case. I was not a data lover. If I had to look at data like in a spreadsheet for more than about 30 seconds, my eyes would cross. I'd start drooling a little bit, probably. It was not something that I enjoyed. It was very draining, in fact, and sometimes today it's still a little bit draining. But it was really challenging for me, especially starting off, because most of the data that I was looking at had to do, it was really in the realm of troubleshooting. So something had gone wrong, there was a problem. So the data was coming to me with this negative context already. And so it was almost, oh no, I have to look at data. Something bad happened, was the feeling that I had. And so there definitely was not a love relationship. But for me, a switch really flipped when I was able to recognize and connect that data represented people and that it could help us figure out their story. And so one of the ways that we describe that is behind every number is a person. Every person has a story, and every story matters to God.
Oh, I love that.
And when I really got that, I care for people. I love people. And when I was able to connect data to people, that's really when I fell in love with data and just started searching and seeking all of the ways that we could leverage it to better lead and help people.
Mm. Well, I love that. I think I've loved data all the time because I am a natural troubleshooter. I was talking to a friend recently, and it's kind of the way God wired my brain. I always look for the problem.
Mm,
I used to think that that was a negative thing. Like on a team, I'd always point to the problem, and people are
yeah.
like, "Why are you so negative?" And then I did a self assessment, several actually during the early part of my ministry career, and recognized that this is actually a gift. And I began to pose it in a way to say, "Well, I'm not a negative person. I'm actually quite positive and want to see everyone succeed, and I want to do things with excellence."
Yes.
But I can't help but look at things because that's how God wired me to look at things and troubleshoot what either is broken or something that is not quite as good as it can be. And I think
Mm,
we have people like myself in the group where
yes.
we look at this information not because we love to stay in the oppressing data or just do it for the fun of the data. It's that the data points to something better.
Yes.
So why don't we focus on that? Why is data important in ministry? Because I think sometimes churches think, oh, it's just information. We just need to focus on the spiritual stuff. But I think sometimes we miss the fact that we have tools given to us naturally, of course, things that are developed that the church should utilize. And I believe this is one of those things. So talk about data and its importance in ministry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just the spiritual side and the data aren't mutually exclusive. They really
Amen.
can complement each other so well because it's all about leading people to Christ, and data can help us do that. It helps me to think about it about data kind of like a Maps app on our phone.
Mm,
If you think about it, the very first thing a Maps app does when you open it up is it figures out where you are.
yeah.
That's the first thing it does, and then it asks you where you want to go. And as soon as you tell it, it has where you are at now, where you want to go, and it's able to help you figure out the best path to get there. And really, as pastors, as leaders that do care about people's spiritual growth and development, really what we're doing is we're leading them to the same destination, which is a relationship with Jesus Christ. We want that for people. And so, but what we can do with data is data can often tell us where people are at.
Mm.
And so, since we know the destination, which is a relationship with Jesus, with the data, we now have the start and the end, and we can help people start crafting the best route to get them toward their next step on their journey to become, in our language, we use fully devoted follower of Christ. That's what we want to lead people toward. And so, with those 2 points, we're able to do that. And then the other thing that I found with data is God often uses it to draw our attention to something, and sometimes it's that problem or opportunity that we need to solve something, we need to fix something, but often it just helps us identify where He's already moving, and it gives us the ability to join Him where He's already moving. And a lot of times the data is the first indicator of where that movement is happening. I remember a conversation I had with my team a few years back, and we're looking at some data, and there's this one data point that's just crazy high, and we're like, man, is this data accurate? Yes. Okay. Well, why is it like this? Did you do something? No, I didn't do anything. Did you do something? No. And we recognize, okay, God's doing something special here. And we actually shifted our priorities and our resources, joined where God was working, and saw some really special and amazing things happen. But if we hadn't been looking at data, we might have missed where God was doing something really special.
Yeah, you just shared something that's very profound because sometimes we tend to, especially in the church world, we tend to think of these kinds of things as really not relevant. If God's going to speak to us, we have to get into a place of meditation and fasting, and that's how we're going to receive everything. But I think God is very dynamic, right? He can speak to us any way He chooses, and
Yeah.
I think he does. I think He speaks to us in ways that we not may not even consider. And then when we do finally understand, we're like, well, God's been speaking all along. The information's been right there. So I love
Yes.
the way Life Church is just very forward thinking in that way. You guys have been great at embracing technology with the Bible app and everything that how that goes across the world and blesses so many people in such a generous way that you guys do that it's fully funded by you guys. It's not something you never see an ad, you never see things you can buy on there. It's totally supported through generosity. And I love that. It's the heart behind what you guys do. But more important than that, I think there's this just desire to use every tool available. And what I've known about you, Rodney, is that God has uniquely equipped you, and you've learned. Of course, you've gained experience, and you've built a team, brought people around you that can help really to look at this information and say, what is God trying to help us to see, and how do we align with what He's showing us, so that we are not caught by surprise, or maybe even to some degree diminish the ministry because we're not paying attention. So I know data is very important, but how do you keep that from becoming something that's confidentially now a bit risky? Because again, we're looking at data, what people are giving, and how do you guys balance that out so that whatever opinion people might have, that hey, I understand the information is important, but I think you guys are in the wrong place when you begin to look at it. How do you guys balance that out? Because I want people to have a balanced understanding of it so that they understand we're not doing anything that would jeopardize in any way a person's confidence in us, in of course their trust in God, and we're not using that data in the wrong way. So how do you guys balance that out?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question, and there's a natural tension there, and I think there's a healthy tension. I think it should be there, because on the one hand, we want our pastors to have all the information they need to lead people well and help them become fully devoted followers of Christ. But at the same time, we want to honor the privacy and keep giving records private as possible. And so, there's got to be a balance there, and some of it is a comfort level. Like what level are I think each church has to kind of decide that for themselves. Where is our comfort level within that tension? The way we've approached it is we absolutely want our pastors to have everything they need to lead people well. And so, what we've done is with our campus pastor, which is the leader at each location, and with their associate campus pastor, that is a pipeline position to become a campus pastor. They can have access to names and numbers. So they can literally see the giving records. It's read only, so they can't make changes to those records, but they can view them for their flock. And God encourages us to know the condition of our flock, and so that's a way that we can know the condition. And we kind of think about giving data in the same way that we think about somebody engaging with God's word. As a pastor, would I want to know if somebody's reading their Bible regularly? Absolutely. Giving's kind of in that same vein. Is it important to their spiritual health to be giving and to be generous? Absolutely, it is. And so, as a pastor, that's information that's helpful to me as I'm trying to lead them toward their next step. So, we've been comfortable giving that level of leadership access to names and numbers. And then what we've done for all of our other pastors is they can have either or. So either they can see aggregated numbers, like, hey, what's the total giving at our campus, or what's restricted giving to this particular fund through our campus, or they can see names of people like who made their first gift ever to Life Church this week. They won't see the amount, but they'll know that they took that spiritual step. And it just gives the pastors the ability to come alongside them and say, man, congratulations on taking that first step of making your first gift. I don't know, anything about anything more than you took that step, but tell me about it. What led you to that? And it just allows them to have the right pastoral conversations. And then I think with there's other nuances to that, but I think primarily if you can get to your comfort level of, hey, what is it we're trying to accomplish pastorally, then usually you can figure out what data helps you accomplish that, and you can set the right guidelines.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, in that same vein of data privacy, you share that the campus pastors have a certain amount of data. Who else do you give access to, and how much access do you give them in order to be able to minister to people as needed?
Yeah, so campus pastors and associate campus pastors can have access to names and amounts. All other pastors can have access to either or, but not both. And we manage that typically through our data visualization tool, which is Tableau. And that's the one that works in our context. And so we're able to set those permissions within that tool. We have some central teams that need to know giving data. And so we've got our giving operations team that actually processes the giving. They're the only ones that have access to actually make changes, and they provide all the giver support. So if a giver calls, that's the right team that they'll connect with to actually make changes to the gifts. One that's common is people will be giving quickly. We've made it really easy to give through our app, but sometimes people actually add an extra zero when they didn't intend to. Well, that's a big deal. And
Yeah,
so
it is.
our giving operations team is able to go refund that gift, and then they can make the gift in the correct amount. So they have access to everything. And then they are also the ones that are responsible for all of the financial auditing. And so they need that level of access. And then beyond that, most of our central teams and our leadership that's making strategic decisions, they get aggregated data. And so, they're not looking at the individual gifts that come in, but they can see, hey, how much giving has come in that supports the area of ministry that I'm responsible to. That helps us set budgets. And so it's part of the budgeting process. And then, so the folks that are responsible for managing expenses know what giving has been and what their budget amount is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it sounds not just reasonable. I think it's almost like, well, absolutely, you need to have this information both for planning, for managing well, for stewarding well. So that's important. I think sometimes the resistance that some folks may have to this, and I do some ministry in another country, and they're nowhere near where we are with looking at giving records, and they actually don't even, when people give, some of them obviously they'll do like a bank draft or they'll give through the app or some way. So sometimes they identify who they are and how much they give. Sometimes they don't. They give cash, they put it in an envelope. And since they have no reason to actually put their name on it because there's no tax deductible a number they have to keep up with or anything like that, sometimes the giving is anonymous. And so it makes it a little bit more difficult for them. But it is a barrier for them to think of using the data that way. And I think there's still some resistance in the US about that. But what I want us to communicate today, and what I hope people would walk away with, if they have any inclination to think, gosh, I'm not comfortable with that information. And again, every church has to get to a place where they're comfortable with whatever information they're going to look at. But at the end of the day, somebody is going to process those gifts. Somebody's going to be able to put all that information together so that the church leadership, the staff can manage, plan, roll out ministry in a way that's financially feasible and wise. But beyond that, and this is where you and I really focus so much on, is we want to be able to minister to people in their walk with Jesus. And in doing so, one of the important aspects of our life is stewardship and generosity, which is, what you and I are focused on. And how do we do that well with our congregation if we have no idea if they're giving or not? We can't just say, well, 50% of our people aren't giving, but I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's good to know 50% aren't giving, but then what are you going to do with it? And how are you going to encourage those who aren't giving, not just those who are? Because if we're preaching to the ones that are giving, they may feel like, gosh, it's never enough. Why are they being so hard on us? Like, we're already giving all we can, instead of realizing that we're not speaking to the right people. So I think it's important to have that balance. And I think you guys do a good job with that.
Yeah, and I think there's a trap that people can fall into, and I think churches are susceptible to it. I'm susceptible to it. Is thinking about giving only in terms of money.
Mm,
And I think if you are thinking about the giving in terms of money, that's when a lot of the privacy concerns and the challenges come in and creep in, and just some of the wrong thinking. But when you really think about it as a spiritual discipline,
mm,
man, I think that lets you have the right posture, the clear thought on where those boundaries ought to be, because it's exactly what you were saying. We want to be able to care for people. We want to be able to communicate people in the right way, and from a spiritual standpoint. And
yep.
so, the giving data is just an example there.
Yeah. All right. So let's shift over to leveraging data. What are some ways that you leverage data?
Yeah. Oh, I always start. My favorite tool that we use is something we call the volunteer generosity analysis.
Mm,
And this is a tool that looks at everybody that is checked in to serve at any of our locations, and asks the question: has anybody in their household given anything over the last 13 months? And we visualize that by month. So think of 13 columns, if you will, and each month there's either a green check mark or a gray X. And so visually, you can just see really quickly, has anybody given anything? So there's no dollar amounts on this. So we actually give access to all of our pastoral staff for this. And as a pastor, maybe they're a kids pastor, they're able to filter to their location and the people that have checked in to serve in the kids ministry, and they can just get an overall sense for, hey, where are those that I'm leading in their walk with Christ in the area of generosity and stewardship. And the way we coach them to use this data is look for changes in behavior. And so if you see somebody that's been giving, maybe they've given 6, 7, 8 months consecutively, and then suddenly they stop, that is a great opportunity to reach out and just have a conversation that might go like this. Hey, this is Rodney at Life Church. I just wanted to reach out and connect with you. Is there anything I can be praying for you and your family about? And it is absolutely amazing how many times when somebody has stopped giving, that there is something significant going on in their life. It might be a medical situation, it might be a job loss, it might be some marriage strain. but it just is a great opportunity for us to be their church, come alongside them, encourage them, pray with them, maybe even bring some other resources along to help them where they're at. And then the opposite is actually true. Sometimes you may see somebody not giving, and then all of a sudden you start seeing those green check marks that they've started giving. That's a change in behavior. It's a great opportunity to reach out and just say something like, "Hey, this is Rodney at Life Church. I just wanted to connect with you. And man, I'd love to hear, what is God doing in your life these days?" And it is amazing how many times when somebody starts giving, that God is doing something really special. And what a great opportunity for us as their church to come alongside them and celebrate what God is doing in their life. And both of those scenarios, it's not at all about the giving. So giving never even comes up in these conversations. It is just leveraging giving data to prompt a pastoral interaction with the right person at the right time. And we just see amazing results and continuously hear great stories about how that change in behavior view from the data triggered an amazing conversation. I love it. It's my favorite.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's also something that, especially larger churches, even if they're not multi-site, maybe it's just a church, so that's
Yeah.
maybe a couple thousand people. It's easy as a person of a church that size, you're going to multiple services, right? And so you're not going to see three-quarters of the people that, because we all go to the same service every
Yes.
every week, right? So you may not know three-quarters of the church. Maybe never seen them. You wouldn't recognize them if they were in a grocery store with you. But yet, these are individuals that come to church for a reason. They're trying to see God. They're trying to
Yeah.
grow spiritually. And to have someone reach out when they don't, and they may not know, I believe that people don't automatically connect. Oh, I started giving, so that's why you're calling me. Like, it has nothing to do with that. Most of them don't go there. We live there because we're looking at the data and are concerned. Like, are people really trusting God? Are they struggling financially? Where are they? But I think if the motivation for using the data is that we just want to minister to people, we just want to make sure people are taking the next step, trusting God, growing in their relationship with God, and they're trusting God, then yeah, you could see this amazing opportunity to encourage those who need to be encouraged, to continue to keep going, keep trusting, and then to lift up the one that is, has fallen down, has struggled because of something that's happening. So it's such a wonderful thing that data can allow us to do. Whereas otherwise, we would not have the information to realize anything's going on.
That's right.
They're not coming to us and saying, "Hey, this is going on in my life." Very few people do that. They'll struggle for months. Sometimes their marriage falls apart and they never tell the church anything. But yet their giving was one indicator that finally, would have said, "Hey, something's wrong. Let's reach out to them." So I love that specific reason for
Yeah.
leveraging data.
Yeah. Another similar way that we leverage it is we did some data analysis just to understand giving behavior. And what we found is if someone's only engagement with our church was giving, there's only a 20% chance. I'm sorry, there's less than a 30% chance that they'll continue giving after 12 months.
Mm,
But if they take one additional step of engagement, like serving or like getting baptized or getting in a small group, if they take one additional step, there's over an 80% chance that they'll continue giving after 12 months. And so we created a visual that allows our campus teams to identify anyone who is only giving. And if they're going to be doing a serving push, these folks are going to get personal invitations to serve. It's not going to have anything to do with the giving. We're not going to talk about their giving at all, but we're going to recognize, hey, this person hasn't, they're only giving. Let's personally invite them into another step of engagement with our church. Same thing if it's we have a welcome class. We call it Known, where we want to get to know people. We want them to get to know us. And if they haven't taken a step to attend that welcome class, they're going to get a personal invite to attend the welcome class. And we've just seen great results. And especially as we're supporting, in our context, we're multi-site. We have a lot of locations with a lot of different pastors trying to lead people. It's leveraging data has allowed us to scale our processes and bring excellence in a lot of different places. And so by having this list, it doesn't matter which location, people can leverage the same data to reach people in their location. And as they grow from 500 people to 1,000 people to 10,000 people, the pastors aren't going to be able to keep up with everybody, like you were saying earlier. But the data can get them the right people to contact at the right time.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Any other ways that you can leverage data before we move on to another topic I want to ask you about? But I don't want to go there too quickly. So, do you have anything else you want to share?
Yeah. Yeah, another way that I think is really pretty simple. We have kind of our strategy around generosity is broken up into three categories. And it's based on where people are at in their journey and how we should be interacting with them. We say it this way: to win at generosity, we need to do three things well. We need to bring in new givers. We need to grow our existing givers toward the tithe and toward irrational generosity, and we need to retain our givers over time. If we do those three things well, we're going to be really successful in the area of generosity. What we've done is we've brought data around that to help each individual campus identify what season they're in or what area they should be focusing on a little bit more than the others. For example, a new campus, for their first 18 to 24 months, they are all about bringing in new people. They're in a new community. People are engaging with us for the first time. They're getting to know our church. They're starting their walk with Christ. And so it's all about inviting them to take their first step and start giving. With more mature campuses, they may be in a growth season. They've brought in a lot of people. Now it's time to grow them toward the tithe and toward irrational generosity, because that's so important to their spiritual health. And then we want to retain givers over time. We look at data, and if we see that someone's attendance is growing way faster than their giving households are growing, we know they're in a bring-in season. There's a lot of people that are attending that haven't started giving yet. If we see the opposite, maybe we see giving households have grown a lot faster than attendance. That's a data indicator that it's time to shift to a growth season. You've brought a lot of new givers in. Now it's time to grow them toward the tithe and toward irrational generosity. And so that's just another way we leverage the data to help know where we should be focusing our efforts to have the maximum return.
Imagine a church where every family thrives spiritually and financially. Generous Life makes this possible with their free app offering engaging classes, financial tools, and a supportive community, all backed by trained coaches. Transform your church's culture of generosity by visiting generouslifeapp.com.
Yeah, man, that's really, really wise, because it formulates the language you use based on what you're trying to accomplish in that congregation. You're not speaking something that's maybe a little too advanced for them.
That's right.
So you're slowly bringing them along from one step to the next to the next. That's just amazing that you can do that, and it's all because you have the right data.
That's right.
The information literally says, here's what's going on, and now you can formulate your communication, your giving moments, everything based on that specific set of information. And as it shifts, then okay, it's time to shift. It's time to focus more on tithing and increase giving and having people really stretch themselves. That's what God wants us to do. He wants us to grow. So I love it. I think that's just such a clear way to leverage data, and also makes it easy for those who are going to be in the front speaking about it, because they're not feeling like they just have to kind of come up with something, and that's hard for a person that's having to do that transition where they're doing the offering and then from worship to the word, usually depending on when it's done in your specific church. But that could be a very stressful and anxious built moment for that person, because they're like, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or that, and like there's so much I could say about it. And I know you guys we've spoken about this in the past, that you do some training and you help with that communication, the giving moment, so that pastors are equipped to be able to say, here's kind of the vein that you want to stay in. This is what the data is saying. So when you're speaking, you're actually connecting to the right context that people are in, and you're helping them and encouraging them in the next step. I love that. I think that's so brilliant.
And I think part of what the data does as well is it's objective. And so it takes, it brings balance to what we as humans tend to bring, which is subjectivity. When you've got data supporting your strategy, it actually builds confidence in those communicators that I know what I'm doing it for the right reasons, that the data is confirming that for me. And then it can also come alongside after they've done some communication and see, hey, was that effective? I was trying to accomplish this. You can bring the data alongside, let them know if they were effective. And by leveraging it in that way, we just all get better. Our communication gets better. Our confidence, as confidence is better, the communication gets better, and it just helps us be more effective.
Yeah, brilliant. I love it. All right. So, are there any limitations to leveraging data?
Oh, absolutely. So, um, I'll give you a great example with our first-time givers. Obviously, following up with a first-time giver is really important. It's a huge step. We want to recognize it. We want to do that timely. But with data, I don't know if any other church experiences this, but we have duplicate profiles in our church management system.
Mm-hmm.
And that can happen if somebody uses a new email address for the first time, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
We may create a brand new profile for them. And if they make a gift using that new email address somehow, then it looks like it's their first gift, but they may have been giving for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so we've got to vet the data. So we actually have a process that we run through every week before our first time giver report goes out to campuses. Vet all of them to make sure they're not duplicate profiles. And if we find duplicates, we merge those. And so we just had to create that process. There's other limitations, and often there are things we want to do with data, and we realize we actually don't capture all the data we need. And so, for example, several years back, we wanted to measure, hey, how much of our church is actually tithing? And we don't have income information. And so we actually don't have a way to accurately know if any individual giving household is tithing. So that was a limitation. There's a data point that we don't have, and we decided we're not going to ask people their income. And broadly, it may come up in individual conversations in some way, shape, or form, but that's their choice. We're not going to pry for that, and so that can be a limitation in data. And then I actually think there's a limitation if you have too much data. Too much data can lead to paralysis.
Oh, that's good.
And I really think one of the secret sauces around data is figuring out, hey, what data do we actually care about, and let's make it as simple and as clean as possible to avoid overcomplication or confusion or that paralysis that can come from too much data.
Yeah. I love that a lot because I think it's easy to want more data because you think more data will actually give you more clarity, but yet being able to really surmise what is the best data that's going to give us the most important details that we need to know and what's just additional fluff that doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah.
So I think that's very, very wise to not overwhelm yourself with the data, but just look at what is it that we really need, stick to those, and those probably will be a lot easier to implement and use. All right. So, last thing on leveraging data, what's something you'd like to do that you're not yet doing?
Oh man, there are a lot of things we'd love to be doing. Probably the thing that I say most frequently is I'd love to create a magic list
Hmm.
for our pastors where every week they get one list of everybody they should contact with the reason why. And right now, our data is we have a lot of it. We've tried to make it as simple as we can, but to go there, you might have to go to a dashboard and do an export. You might have to go to a different dashboard for something else, do an export. And so, being able to combine all of our data points into one thing for one actionable list for our pastors is a dream that we've been working on for probably 10 years now, trying to get that as simple as we possibly can. It's been a dream for 10 years, not working on it, but we're making progress, but we're not there yet.
Well, I mean, I would venture to guess you guys are probably quite ahead of many other churches. So I so appreciate what you guys do, and I also appreciate you, Rodney, because you're so willing to share what you guys are doing, how you're learning about this, and sharing it with other churches. Simply because you're learning and you're kind of spearheading some of this, and as you learn, you're willing to share. So appreciate that, and of course, you're sharing some gold stuff today. So thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, let's touch on one more topic before we wrap up today, and that's leveraging AI. AI is changing at such a rapid rate. There are things that we can do today that we couldn't do 6 months ago, and it's pretty overwhelming at times, but also completely fascinating because you think, gosh, there's so many things that we were not able to do that we can do. So how are you guys thinking about AI? It is a hot topic. It's constantly changing, but how are you leveraging it today?
Yeah. We're doing several things. One of my favorites is we're leveraging a tool called, it's a Google product called Notebook LM, and it allows you to link video content from YouTube. Literally, you cut and paste the link into this Notebook LM tool, and if as long as there's a transcript associated with the video, it will analyze all of the data. So what we've done is we've loaded all of Pastor Craig's messages that involved generosity and stewardship. We loaded all those messages into this Notebook LM tool, and it will create a message summary for you. If it's a series of multiple messages, you can join those and have a series summary. And then it also creates a searchable database. And for me, I don't remember the exact words he said. I'll be like, oh, I feel like Pastor Craig talked about this topic. When was that? I don't remember. What message series was it? I don't remember. This gives me the ability to go in and just type my query, and AI will scan through all of the message series, as many as we've loaded, and will spit out the answer. And so we've been able to, matter of fact, some of our recent communication is from a message series. We're using language from a message series from about 4 years ago, the way he articulated it, which was just fantastic. And so it's been a great tool. Another way we're using it is with something that we call it attendance flow, and we actually have serving flow and giving flow. And what we're doing is we're looking at the data points that we have around people, and we've identified some characteristics in the data that can predict if someone's at risk of lapsing either in their attendance, in their serving, or in their giving. And what this has allowed us to do is just have do a care check with people before they actually lapse, which has been pretty amazing. And previously, like in the area of giving, we wouldn't follow up with somebody until after they had stopped giving, and often by that time, you're late in the game. And so by moving the care check up before they lapse, we're able to prevent them from lapsing, often be able to come alongside them and support them with something they're dealing with. And it's been a great tool so far. So those are just a couple of the ways we're exploring. I'm looking at tools for data analysis. Having 45 locations and church online, it is impossible for me to look at all of the data that's out there. And so I'm leveraging a couple of different AI tools to try to analyze data broadly to help me identify trends or things that we might need to do at one specific location. And that's been a lot of fun to play with as well.
Yeah. Well, I like how forward thinking you guys are about that. And we know AI is going to be a major part of how we operate in the future. And it's been talked about for a while, but now it's some of the tools that are coming out are just incredible. And I love that you guys are thinking through that and thinking, how can we leverage that? Not just to make things easier, because I think it has the ability to do that, but really just to continue to give us the right data so that we're actually working with the right information. It can be overwhelming. Like I said, it's changing all the time. But what I love about it, and we've here at CSN been using AI for different purposes, and I'm working on trying to develop what's called a bot, an AI bot, so that we can take all of the information that we've gathered and all the content we've developed over the last whatever years, and dump that into this tool so that anyone can ask any question, and it would pull just from the information that we've published and posted and videos and sessions we've done and content we've developed, so that a church that's somewhat new to this process can just ask real specific questions like, how would I do this? What does that look like? And get real information and links to videos and sessions that we've done, and panel sessions that you can hear different perspectives. And so I love that we have the ability to have that. And yes, it's changing all the time, and sometimes it's hard to know if it's going to work and how it's going to adapt. But again, I think what I'm hearing you say, and what I love about what you guys typically do, is that you're forward thinking. You're thinking, how can we do that? Right? How do we help them take that next step? So, kind of the same with leveraging data, leveraging AI. Have you found any limitations that you're considering and looking at?
Yeah. So one of the things is how quickly the technology is evolving. And so there have been products we were testing that folded, and they don't exist anymore. And so, a part of it is, we're careful not to put all of our eggs in one AI tool basket right now. It's such an evolving landscape. So that's one limitation that comes to mind. The other is context. And so when all of these AI tools are responding, or they're answering, or they're helping you, they only have the context that you give it. For example, I was doing some data analysis and was asking, hey, which of our campuses is performing best in a particular area? I just wanted to learn what that pastoral team was doing, and try to capture some best practices to share with everyone else. And so I asked the AI tool that we were using to analyze that, and it came back with like city names that we didn't have campuses in. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And what I realized is I actually hadn't given it context for our campus code abbreviations. And so it was trying to interpret something without all of the needed context. So I just had to give it that context of, hey, this abbreviation means this specific campus. And once I added that context, it worked great. But a lot of times that's kind of the trick, is knowing what context the tool needs in order to give you accurate responses that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's really great that you highlighted that, because that's the case whenever we use AIs, to realize that it's pulling from a lot of information, but it does it very quickly, and it's picking a lot of times information it thinks you'll want.
That's right.
But if you're not specific enough, and I remember probably about a year and a half ago, so going through a specific course and listening to this one particular lesson, and the person that was teaching it highlighted that the importance with AI is that you have to be as specific as possible.
That's right.
And the better you formulate the question, the more detail you offer it, the more likely you're going to get not only an accurate response, but it'll narrow it down to what you're actually looking for. So,
Yes.
so that's good advice for all of us as we use AI in different formats, because again,
Yeah.
it's still learning. One of the things that I've learned personally is that, because I have a specific account that I use just for CSN and stewardship and generosity questions. I don't ask anything else of that specific account other than that. So now it's built a database for now more than a year, and it knows, and it's constantly learning from what I'm asking and what I'm interacting with. And as I'm developing more content and having conversations with it and asking it questions, it's putting that in the background so that next time I ask a question, it's a lot more precise. It's a lot more condensed. And it brings up things that I have offered as information or that I've developed. So I can tell that the information is being gathered from that specific context. And that's the benefit of AI, because it doesn't forget anything, and it can pull up all the best information
Yeah.
for that specific scenario. So I do find it as a tremendous tool.
That's right. Yeah. One other thing that we found is great context to give it was our value statements. And that's not specific to, analyzing financial or giving data in any way, but by adding our value statements as we're asking questions, it helps bring the answers back in alignment with our values. And that was really helpful too.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so let's circle back a little bit. Now that we talked about data privacy, and now you're talking about AI, how does privacy come into play while you're leveraging AI?
Yeah, that is a big deal and is definitely a hot topic. Data privacy is a hot topic for sure, and what we're seeing is a lot of individual states are passing their own data privacy laws, and so it is hard to keep up with all of the laws. We're fortunate enough; we've got a legal team that helps us with that. Not every church has that benefit. But there's definitely some great free resources out there that can kind of give you summaries of the different laws that are being passed. So there's a compliance component where you want to be careful how you're handling information and make sure you're doing it in a compliant way. Part of what we've done is updated our privacy policy and our terms of use with our website, with our app, to include the ways that we might leverage AI tools, because we want to be transparent. We want people to know how we might be using their data. So we want to stay compliant in that regard. And then we've chosen to really strip out personally identifiable information, or PII. We actually strip that out before we load data into these AI tools. And so, for example, when I load transactions to do some of the broader data analysis, we don't include names, emails, anything that's personally identifiable on a transaction level. We strip out before we ever load it into any type of an AI tool. We're just going to protect people's information in that way. That's another thing that we try to manage. And then the last thing really is within the different models, there are sharing options. And so just within the tool, just kind of making sure you understand before you use it, hey, how is the information I submit going to be shared? We typically have selected tools that allow us to kind of create our own instance where that information is not shared to train other models or to be used outside of our localized context.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say is you're thinking about what information, if we put it in here, could be potentially exposing either people or our systems or something that needs to stay private.
That's right.
And I think as long as you're thinking along those lines and trying to keep that from escaping, so to speak, the information that's supposed to be private, because you wouldn't give anybody access to your database, right?
That's right.
And so it's kind of the same thing. All you're doing is saying is we're not going to give an AI that we don't control, that it's not in our, it's not ours. We're just using it.
That's right.
To leverage it, but there's certain information it just doesn't need in order to still get out of it what you're trying to get out of it. So I think that's great thing to share with our audience.
Yeah.
Because as we are all looking to use it, we need to have those privacy laws in mind and keep up with it. And like you said, there's ways to stay ahead of that. Some churches are more resourced than others, but I think simply just keep the private information away from the AI. Use the data that doesn't specifically point to a person, and that should keep you fairly safe. But that's great. Anything else you want to share?
Man, one thing that I know is that churches are all unique. We all have our own quirks, our own giftings, our own callings, things that we do really well, things we don't do at all. And when you think about kind of how you want to leverage data, you really have to contextualize it and bring it into your own environment. And just as I think about the things we've talked about today, I've absolutely shared what has worked well in the Life Church context. That might not work well in every context. There may be better ways to do that, and so I think that's just something else to definitely consider. It really goes back to the values and what we're called to do as a church, and just making sure that how you steward data is in alignment with your calling, with your giftings, with your comfort level. And I think it's always important just to have leadership buy-in on what your data strategy is in that space. So I think it's absolutely worth the conversation. The rewards are tremendous when you leverage data well. And so there are some risks that go along with that have to be managed. But when you have the right conversation on the front end, it really sets you up for success in the long run. So I'd encourage any church to lean into data and figure out how to leverage it well within your context.
Yeah, well put. Well put. It's definitely something that would benefit. And besides any reservations we have, any concerns we have, those can be mitigated. And we could definitely use these tools and use data specifically to help us to minister to people better. So thank you, Rodney. Thank you for sharing so much good information for our audience to be considering and thinking through. And I know you're connected with CSN and you're part of our membership, and you're always willing to. You've always been willing to offer any kind of assistance you can. And we have a bunch of resources that you've been part of, sessions you've done, workshops and things. And so I just encourage anyone that's listening, if you want to know more about and just really learn from a church that's really been well resourced by the Lord and they've used it faithfully. They've been good stewards of the resources that God has given them, and they are helping to somewhat blaze a trail and help other churches. So they're testing things for us and then sharing it with us. I love that about your church. And I'm so thankful for you and everything that you do. You're such a generous man of God that just wants to share what you're learning and trying to help all the churches to succeed in the same way. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, and I think the same could be said about CSN. That is CSN's heart, and that's why I'm just so passionate about this ministry that we get to be a part of together. It's people that have blazed the trail in this area in generosity and stewardship, happily sharing wisdom, and so I just have found so much value in being a part of the community.
Mm.
There are times where I'm banging my head against some problem, and because of the CSN community, I've got a list of 50 people I can pick up the phone and reach out to and
Yeah.
just say, hey, have you ever thought about this, or have you experienced something like this? Have you tried this? And just that sharing of wisdom has been invaluable to me, and so it's just an honor to be a part of the community.
Well, thank you, Rodney. Appreciate you very much. And again, thanks for your time today. It's been very, very helpful. Thank you.
Awesome, Leo. Thank you.
And I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. If it's been helpful to you, I just encourage you to share it with at least one other church leader, maybe a senior pastor, an executive pastor, maybe a financial person at your church that just feels like they're kind of isolated doing something that they're not really sure if they're being good at. There's so much that this community of stewardship leaders can really offer as far as guidance, as far as content, information that we have walked out and learned from, experience that we've gained that we would just love to share with you. As we mentioned, we have a membership. It's the Christian Stewardship Network. You can find out all about us on our website. And if we can come alongside you and help you in whatever efforts you're making in your church to make stewardship and generosity a discipleship issue, something that you're equipping your people on how to do well, we would love to help. Again, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Stewardship Leader.